it's like to be the rainmaker. Well, I wonder what it's like to know that I made the rain. I'd store it in boxes with little yellow tags on every one. And you could come and see that when I'm done, when I'm done. I wonder what it's like to be a superhero. I wonder where I'd go if I could fly around downtown. Yeah. From some other planet, I get this funky high on the yellow sun. Boy, I bet my friends are already stunned. They're stunned. Yeah. Straight up, what did you hope to learn about here? If I was someone else, would this all fall apart? Strange, where were you when we started this game? I wish the real world would just stop hassling me. You and me. Well, I wonder what it's like to be the head honcho. I wonder what I'd do if they all did just what I said. Well, I'd shout out an order. I think we're out of this, man, get me some. Boy, don't make me wanna change my tone. My tone. Straight up, what did you hope to learn about here? If I was someone else, would this all fall apart? Strange, where were you when we started this game? I wish the real world would just stop hassling me. Please don't change, please don't break. Well, the only thing that seems to work at all is you. Please don't change at all for me.
The Morgan Thomas Show. Brought to you by Black's Tire Inc.
What's up, everyone? It's the Morgan Thomas Show with Big Al, my co-host and good friend, Alan Adams. Welcome to the show, Al.
Man, talk about a busy day for Tigers. We got a lot to talk about tonight, man. It's a lot of Clemson news, some good, some bad, pretty roller coaster day today. But hey, it's time. It is now. It's a little past 8:30, but you know it's time to get going here, and let's get some stuff in here.
Well, we're excited to have you back on the Morgan Thomas Show, talking about all things Clemson Tigers, and today maybe talking about a little bit more than the Clemson Tigers. But thank you so much for watching and listening wherever you are watching and listening. If you're over on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Periscope, wherever you might be watching or listening. Or if you're watching or listening to the replay on our podcast, we appreciate you supporting the show. You can also check out some of our extra work, after the show work, over on southlandclub.com. It's a little website Alan and I got crazy enough to start a website to try to just express ourselves in different ways other than on YouTube and on our live stream. So you can check out some of the articles that we've written there. And we have a forum there, and we've got some extra things that we're in the works with right now that we think are going to kind of separate us from the rest of your average, well, I wouldn't say average, but your typical Clemson websites out there. So, stick with us. But still, we're going to have our show, the Morgan Thomas Show, again, every Monday night, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time, if we can start on time. And that is every Monday night, and we'll talk, like I said, all things Clemson football. Al, before we get started into anything, I wanted to let our viewers, our listeners know about our primary show sponsor, our title sponsor, and that is Black's Tire Inc. You can see it there on the screen. 864-647-9292. Black's Tire Inc. is family-owned and operated since 1971. If you need new tires, brakes, alignments, tire repair, or just looking for a friendly professional to help answer your questions, check out Black's Tire Inc., located 1415 East Main Street, Westminster, South Carolina. Give them a call, 864-647-9292. And as I've said before, you go past the stadium, into Seneca, past Seneca, into Westminster, and it's right there as you enter into Westminster. And they've been around for a while. Preston and Dale both have supported our show really since day one, and we really appreciate that, giving us the support. We've come a long way, Al. I mean, first episode I ever did was in front of just friends on my regular Facebook page. We had about 5 people watching, and they were just friends, and they probably were just entertaining me. But, now on average, I was checking these stats, 29,000 views on average between Facebook and YouTube. So thank you so much to our viewers out there for supporting us and, showing us some love.
Yeah, man, can't do it without them, right? I mean, look, I say that we could get on here and talk to nobody, but what fun is that? It's the interaction with the fellow Tiger fans, fellow college football fans. That's the best part.
Yeah, for sure. Let's check in over on YouTube and Facebook. I've got Giggled and Clemson Jacob over on YouTube. We got about 11 people watching. Make sure you like and share the video. Got Allison also as well over on YouTube. So make sure you like and share the video with your friends so other Tiger fans can be a part of the show. And make sure, if you want to call in, we have a call-in number, 864-772-6674. That's our Charleston Sports Pub hotline, 864-772-6674. And you can do that. I'm going to try to put it in on the comments so you don't forget the number there. But you can call in, and we'll talk about whatever you want to talk about tonight. We would encourage that from you. What do you got over on Facebook, Big Al?
Right now, it looks like we got about 25 people. Regular, Kevron Harris was with us. We have Billy Sigmund, Mark Childress. Who else? Philip Stedman, our resident Vol fan. I hope he's still with us. And we got, who else we have? Mark Bryant, Houston Burnett, who's going to be with us shortly, actually. Al Kuhn, Susan Lloyd. We got all kind of people watching over here on Facebook. So, again, as Morgan said, we always appreciate the support.
Yeah, and to get started into kind of our segment number one, we wanted to talk about Clemson football, and this is related to Clemson football. Really, it's related to everyone in the world right now, and there's some big events going on, some unfortunate events, as you know, happened over this past week, and a lot of people, I think unjustly in the media, came out and said, where's Dabo Swinney in all this? Well, Dabo Swinney was working in the background, and really, in my opinion, didn't need to make a statement to the media because, I feel like he's already made statements before in the past. But 2, if you follow Dabo at all, you already kind of know what he's going to say. And 3, usually what happens with Dabo, Al, is he'll say something and, people will want him to say something, so he'll say something, and then people will pick on him for say something. So it's like, you can never win when you're in his position. And it's a lot like any leadership position. Everybody wants to pick and ridicule the person who is out front because everybody knows what it takes to be out front. Everybody knows what they want a leader to be, but not everybody can be that person or even willing to have the guts to be in that position.
Yeah, it's kind of tough. It's like you said, it's a no-win situation for Dabo. No matter what he does, whether he says nothing, whether it takes him a while to say it, or whether he says it all in the beginning, there was a no-win situation. He knew that going in, and I think he wanted to kind of take the time to gather his thoughts before he released anything to the public. I'm sure he's been talking with his team behind the scenes and stuff like that. We know the kind of leader Dabo is, and I'm not worried about that in the least. But yeah, I like what he said. I thought his comments today were fantastic, as they usually are. They're well thought out, and they always circle back to his faith, which of course scores extra points with guys like us, no doubt about it. But yeah, Dabo was a class act all the way today.
And unfortunately, it doesn't score extra points with everyone.
Nope.
I've been unfortunately listening, or not listening, but reading a lot of comments on Twitter. A lot of things out there already blasting him, as I said. But before we get into those comments, let's listen in to what he said today at his press conference.
Address a couple things today, and certainly could have just put out a statement, but I really just felt like address a couple things today and properly, and just put out a statement. And also, there's a couple things to talk about. But first and foremost, I know that we are all hurting for the Floyd family and our country, and I can speak for our entire staff and our team in that regard for sure. We have all witnessed just disgusting acts of evil. That's really the only word I can appropriately use over the past recent week here and beyond. But to address it, for me to really be able to address it, everything for me goes back to my faith. That's where I draw my peace from. That's where I draw my hope from. That's where I draw my perspective from. And I'm glad I don't have social media, because my reaction would probably have been to jump on social media and probably say things I shouldn't say and regret. And I'm glad I don't have that. But what I know as I, approach everything from a perspective of faith is that where there are people, there's going to be hate, there's going to be racism and greed and jealousy and crime and so on, because we live in a sinful, fallen world. And we've had so much bad news. Everywhere you turn, there's bad news. But really today, I just wanted to take a moment and offer some good news. And for me, the good news is that we have a Lord that loves us all and that has conquered already. And that we all have a choice as to how we think, how we love, how we respond, and how we forgive. And there's no question that these are challenging times. But what I've learned is where there is no challenge, there is no change. And we have to all accept the challenge and all help to bring about positive change and growth. And as I talked to our staff this morning, the soil is fertile. And the seeds of this soil of change, if you will, are love, our respect, our attitude, kindness, humility, service, faith, and forgiveness. And you know what? Forgiveness is always the hardest. Forgiveness was something that I struggled with in my life, in my teens and early 20s, and eventually, I was the one being hurt because that forgiveness just eats at you. And if you take the word faith, and I can thank Todd Bates for this, if you take that word faith and you make it into an acronym, forgiveness always is the hardest, and it is. But love, respect, attitude, kindness, humility, service, faith, and forgiveness, these are the choices that we control. we do control those choices. And there are 3 truths right now for sure for this time. And this is another thing Coach Bates and I were talking about, and I agree. Love doesn't see color. Hate does. Hatred has no heart. Love does. And as football teams and just people in general, we have to stick together. We got to respect each other, and we got to accept the differences that do exist. And for me, my focus is my team and the staff. And my prayer is that God will continue, as he has for the last 11 and a half years, that God will continue to use our program at Clemson to develop, to shape, to equip, to educate, and to raise up great men through the game of football that are going to go on into this world as great leaders and create wonderful change and bring love and wisdom to our country. That's my passion. That's our why. And that's my focus. And one of the things that I always tell our team, and they've heard me say many, many times in regards to football, is that there is no hope for a better yesterday. There's no hope for a better last week. There's no hope for a better last year. It just isn't. But one of the verses in the Bible that I've always hung on to for a long, long time, it has always comforted me when I needed it, and that's Jeremiah 29:11. And that verse says, "For I know the plans I have for you. They're plans for good, not disaster. Plans to give you a future and a hope. For I know the plans I have for you. Plans for good, not disaster. Plans to give you a future and a hope." And while there may be no hope for a better yesterday, there is hope in the future. And when there's hope in the future, there's power in the present. And that power, for me, comes from my faith, comes from the strength and the peace of knowing that Jesus is on the throne. And that's really all I can say. And that's how I can, that's the only thing I can offer is my perspective of faith and hope that can be an encouragement. Our team is hurting, communicated with them last week, and our staff is amazing. But we absolutely must come together. And so I wanted to just share that and take a minute to let you hear that from me and make sure I articulated it the right way. But the second thing.
All right, and again, that was head coach of the Clemson Tiger football team, Dabo Swinney, speaking earlier today at a press conference, talking about the current events that are going on. A lot of people kind of picked on him over the past week about not coming out, but one thing that I think of, Al, is the verse about be slow to speak, slow to anger, and quick to listen, right? And I don't know if I said that right, but I think about that in the sense that sometimes it is okay to reflect on what your emotions are and not come out immediately and say something, or in the sense of some come out and just give a corporate response, in a graphic. I mean, you and I could have thrown up I got Photoshop. You guys have seen my graphic design skills, hopefully. I mean, I could throw up a Photoshop and a lot of times I know from the corporate world, people that throw up Photoshop, that quote may never have actually been seen by anybody other than the legal department. And so whether or not you want to believe that or not, but that is the truth when it comes to big business, that some of these statements aren't from the heart. Some of these statements aren't from the person that it's quoted from. And I would even say that in the highest levels of government. If you listen to them speak, sometimes you have to scratch your head and say, did this person really write this? I don't think they did, compared to some other things, right? So, but I will say that, Dabo Swinney is caught in a lot of flack for not coming out earlier. And like I said earlier, he's already starting to get some hate for what he said. But, I mean, I'm a Clemson fan, so I don't have anything against it. I'm also a Christian and a huge Dabo Swinney fan as well.
Yeah. I mean, look, the fact is, I come back to my faith as well. I like to lean on my faith just like Dabo does. And, he says there's hope for the future. That should ease a lot of people's mind, okay? Because if you hadn't been listening to Dabo Swinney over the past 10 years, you hadn't been paying attention, okay? All he does is tell you, what's going to happen, how he's going to build a program, how it's going to get better and better. The best is yet to come, and it's done nothing but come true, and it continues to come true. So if you don't want to hear it from me, that there's hope for the future, then listen to Dabo Swinney, because that's what he said. That was his message, and it was a brilliant message as usual, and I expect nothing less.
And some people have said, hey, we don't want words, we want action, and action right now. And I think what people miss, and I do want action, and I think everybody, at least all of my friends, regardless of race, have just been sick about what's going on again. And things happen and time passes and you think, okay, things are getting better. Or maybe we naively thought they have cameras now, so cops with cameras is going to be better. Everything's going to be better. And, it just goes back to one person's sin can negatively affect more than just that one person. In this case, unfortunately, Mr. Floyd had lost his life because of someone's sin, someone's racism. And unfortunately, that person was in a position of power. And what I would say is that people who want action now, from a Christian perspective, and really, I think outside of a Christian perspective, before you can do things with your hands, and follow me with this, Al, but before you can do things with your hands, you have to change your mindset between your ears. Your mind gives the actions to your body. But before you can even do anything with your mind, you have to make a change in your heart. And that change in your heart can't come alone. And you and I know it comes from, Jesus Christ. And Dabo Swinney also believes in that as well. Now, you might be watching, listening, and it may sound foreign to you what we're saying, and it may not make any sense, because I saw a lot of people on Twitter saying, this doesn't make any sense. Dab is just talking in circles. Sometimes the things that a Christian person might say don't make sense to someone who doesn't believe in God, or maybe has lost faith in God completely. And so I actually don't blame that person who feels like, well, Dabo just talked in circles, doesn't make any sense. I would say maybe listen to it one more time. Maybe, talk to somebody who is a Christian that you may know and get some, thoughts from them to see. Obviously, we can't speak to Dabo Swinney again, but I thought it was great. And I thought, I think, as he said, he approached his team. We don't really deserve anything from him, but his team does. His staff does. He is the leader of that organization there. So at least he addressed it with them. And I know he probably addresses it with them a lot, because he talks about developing leaders, developing these young men into leaders. And that's a process. It's not an overnight change. This isn't an issue that's going to be, let me go turn the switch on, So, but let's get over to Houston. And he is on the line with us, and he's going to talk about some other. What's up, Houston? Are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I hope that the people at home can hear you as well. Thank you so much for joining in, and let me get the volume up on Houston here on my end, and there we go. All right, so I wanted to bring Houston on, so we got Alan, myself, and Houston to talk about some other things that he mentioned, and specifically other big news that's going on, and that is the fact that number one wide receiver for Clemson's 2020 season. The main target expected for Trevor Lawrence, Justin Ross, has now been ruled out for the 2020 season. And, this was his junior year, so it may not be that he will return or play in a Clemson uniform ever again. Now, even more serious is that after he received this or after he had this stinger, they sat him down and they did typical checks on him. They ran an x-ray on him, and most of you know in the upstate, Dr. Martin, Dabo said Dr. Martin came to his office and said, "You're not going to believe this. I found a congenital spinal fusion, or I don't even know exactly the right name, but he found an issue with his spine and his neck that had been there since he was born, and this is something that's going to need to be operated on, and this is something that's serious enough to where if it's not corrected and treated properly, he may not be able to play football, and that is really, really scary."
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I think that's kind of the big deal here is you're not worried so much about him missing the Clemson season, or not being able there to catch balls from Trevor Lawrence or anything like that. You're worried about him and his future and his future in the NFL. I think that's kind of a big deal, and I think that's what all Tiger fans are praying for right now is a quick recovery. So there's a lot going on with this particular injury, and I kind of been thinking about this. Is he going to come back for another year to play? And if assuming, he gets better, just, he goes through the rehab process and everything. And I tend to think right now that we're actually going to see him in a Clemson uniform again, but we'll see how it goes. Fingers crossed.
Well, Houston, welcome to the show tonight, and let us know what are your thoughts after hearing this kind of upsetting news from the Clemson camp?
Yeah, it is really upsetting. It's sad to see someone as talented as Justin Ross, someone who, even as Dabo mentioned, just kind of the unfortunate of the situation. He didn't feel anything. He could run, jump, dunk a basketball, was feeling fine, and just had minor shoulder pain. And then this turns into this very serious condition. The things that you can at least take solace in is you're going to have surgery from the same doctor that's operated on Ryan Shazier. And that situation itself was just an incredibly dire situation to begin with, and to see how Ryan has recovered, it really gives me hope that obviously for number one that he heals and he's able to just function as normal life, but being able to come to football is actually a reality going up to Pittsburgh. And then the unfortunate situation is then trying to make sure that he's okay. They said if he's an accountant, he's back in 6 weeks, but he's not an accountant. He's running fly routes on 3rd and 16, trying to get a pass. So it's going to be a long road, but I have faith that they're going to be able to move forward. And I too, kind of like Alan, I'm echoing the sentiment that you lose out on a year where you could have really cemented yourself as a first round draft pick, and that might not be there if you don't play for a year. So there is a very good possibility that we see Justin Ross return in 2021 to one of those deepest wide receiving cores in the history of college football.
I think it would be great to see him come back. My initial thoughts are good luck with that. He was already projected to be a top round first round draft pick as a wide receiver going into next season. First and foremost, he's got to get healthy. I was at that practice, that final practice where there was speculation that he had a serious injury, and Dabo Swinney said no, it was just a stinger. He sat out the rest of practice. He got hit kind of awkwardly, and it really wasn't the hit or anything. It was the X-ray afterwards that kind of said, oh no, this is bigger than what, just a stinger. And, I remember seeing him walk out of the stadium that day smiling, laughing, having a good time with his teammates there. I believe that it was EJ there with him as they were walking out. But, he had his pads still on. His helmet wasn't on. But I looked at him and I thought, and I told you, Al, in many text messages, No big deal. He's going to be fine.
Yeah.
He's going to be fine. I was very confident because he looked on the outside like no big deal. But obviously there were some bigger things going on. And as Houston mentioned, this is not a doctor that, it's his first rodeo. This is one of the best, or it may be the best, at that type of surgery. And so our thoughts and prayers go to Justin Ross. I know that it's tough for the team. Specifically, talking about the team, here's the wide receiver group. I always have a problem with that word. But when you listen to the podcast, you'll never know I did it. Here's the wide receiver group roster for 2020 now if you remove Justin Ross. Cornell Powell, we've talked about him a lot. He started to have another big spring. Dabo Swinney was high on him again. Mm-hmm. And I even asked Dabo a question point blank. I said, Dabo, you talk about Cornell Powell last year. We saw him in the spring game. We thought he was going to make an impact on Saturdays. It didn't come out. He said, hey, it's going to be up to Cornell to make that transition from practice star to game star. Now, Cornell's still on the team and may have an opportunity now. Amari Rogers obviously is going to play a big role, maybe even a bigger role. But I think the guys that are going to play an even bigger role are guys like Joe Ngata and Frank Ladson. I'm excited to see Frank Ladson. I think you kind of saw some hints of what he was capable of, but it kind of calls an even bigger alarm for E.J. Williams, Ross's good friend, to now step up.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. EJ's going to have to come in and play this year because he's the most ready of the two incoming receivers, with him and Ajo. I think Ajo's just too raw. He's got a lot to work with. I mean, he's physically ready. I think he's big enough to come in and play. I just, does he know how to run routes properly? I think he's got too much ahead of him to see too much action this year. Not to say he won't get some, but especially with this latest development. But yeah, it's going to be a lot about EJ Williams stepping up, and it's more of a depth thing. Okay, for me, look, I get it. Ross is a huge loss. As a matter of fact, a few weeks back we were talking about him, and I said he was going to be the alpha this year. He had what it takes to be that alpha dog, and I think he was going to be that guy this year. Now I think it's going to be, Ladson or Ngata. And I tend to think Ngata is going to be the guy that takes the biggest step this year. And people are worried about it. Yeah, well, they didn't do, as much as we thought their freshman year. Look, they're going to do it as sophomores. I think they're going to come out. They're really going to break out this year, have great seasons. You've got Amari Rogers. And I also think one of the key elements to this whole deal is the increased presence of the tight end. I think that's going to be a huge weight off the shoulders. That's just going to be another element in the passing game. People aren't going to know who to focus on because they were going to focus on Ross, and he's no longer there. Okay, so that a little confusion may be out there in the secondaries for opposing teams. But yeah, these guys in Clemson, they're going to step up. We always have that next man up mentality. I think they'll do just that.
And Houston, I'll volley it to you. What's your thoughts on it? Do you agree with Alan in the sense that not only is the Clemson wide receiver position loaded, but also the tight end position is starting to come into its own?
I'd agree. And two examples that I like to bring up, these both happened in the same year, but in similar fashions. You had it happen in the pros in college. In Clemson in 2015, similar, maybe not a congenital injury, but a neck injury to Mike Williams. And what it forced Deshaun to do is distribute the ball amongst the targets that he had. You had Artavis Scott, Ray McLeod, Deion Kane, a very good tight end in Jordan Leggett, and some other targets that you had as well that you began spreading the ball out. And Hunter Renfrow, obviously. So you began to see Deshaun be able to pick apart defenses with, I don't know if there's a such thing as this of a wide receiver by committee, but it kind of was. You didn't have that go-to guy as much as you did a bunch of great targets and a bunch of great useful weapons on the outside, and to be able to get third downs like Renfrow was able to do, and then a useful tight end. The other example, similar season, is the 2015 Carolina Panthers. I know y'all aren't as much, pro guys. I'm a big Panthers fan. And that year, you lose Steve Smith. He's released. Everybody's like, what in the world's going to go on? What's happening? And all Cam Newton does is distribute the ball amongst the receivers that he have, with Philly Brown, and some of the others on that team that ended up going to the Super Bowl. So my point is that this could prove to be a great year for Trevor because, and not saying this was a habit or a problem, but there always tended to be some games where you may get locked on a guy like T. Higgins. And this may be able to break a habit of getting locked on to your guy, getting locked on to Justin Ross. You're able to find a variety of very talented, very destructive wide receivers, disruptive to a defense, like Ngata and Ladson and Galloway, and a name that we should probably get to know, Brandon Spector, Hunter Renfrow 2.0 per se. So those are the potential ways that this could improve this year because you're going to see a more distribution amongst all the wide receivers, and we're loaded at the position to begin with.
Yeah, I think that Clemson at least has done what they needed to do on the recruiting trail to keep up with this wide receiver class or with this issue at wide receiver. This didn't just happen this year, but an injury happened last year, and it's because of the work that the staff has done at that position that it's not as or as softer of a blow than normal. But I mean, anytime you lose a guy who's projected to be number one going into the season, projecting to be your big guy, and we know that this was his kind of show me year, I guess, or his NFL contract year. They say your contract year when you're in the pros. This was kind of his contract year to show what he can do as a junior and then get ready to excel at the NFL draft and at the next level. Do you think that if he does not, well, we know he's not going to play in 2020, but if he goes immediately into the NFL, let's say he has a clean bill of health, Al, do you think that he's still going to be a first-round draft pick?
Well, I got to tell you, I'm not so sure he was a first-round draft pick. I think he has the potential to be a first-round draft pick and probably would have had he been here this year and played at Clemson. But he didn't have the season everybody anticipated that he was going to have last year. He kind of really broke out his freshman year, had all those highlight catches, especially in the championship game against Alabama. But he disappeared at times this year. As they were going to T. Higgins all the time, which is kind of the go-to target. And Higgins, deserved every one of those throws. But he disappeared at times. He wasn't quite the alpha everybody thought. As a matter of fact, we've mentioned this on the show several times. Ross was kind of getting more hype going into the season than Higgins was, and Higgins proved that he was the number one for sure. So I don't know that he was going to be a first-round draft pick. I think he would have gone high round. He would have probably gone early second, something like that to me. But yeah, I think he can come back and cement his status as a high first-round pick, maybe top 15 type pick, something like that.
Now, I know Dabo Swinney would defend his player in the sense that he did say as much last time, last practice. I remember somebody saying the same thing about, his lack of production last year. He did have more catches, more targets, and I believe better yards per catch, but he did not have better total yardage. He kind of slowed down in the total yardage,
Right.
But he did have like 35 more catches, I believe. But you're right, especially, recency biased, especially in the championship game and in the playoff games. All Clemson wide receivers struggled for sure. Houston, what's your thoughts?
I tend to agree with Alan. I think the caveat here is, could he potentially be a high draft pick without playing this year? That's a possibility. But I think there's also a lot of talent in this particular draft class. You have the receivers that are still at LSU that are going to be draft eligible this year, receivers at Alabama that are going to be draft eligible this year, the receivers in the ACC. I believe there's a couple guys at UNC that are immensely talented. And so, if he goes, absolutely wonderful. Hopefully, I hope that he has a wonderful career. No hard feelings. Tip the cap. You're one of the greatest Tigers to ever come through. But I do think there's a benefit to coming back. I do think that if he comes back, he becomes a quasi, obviously not from a player perspective as far as his game goes, but a leadership perspective, he's going to be what Amari Rodgers is to this team now, a senior leader coming back. to prove that he's healthy, that he can be a leader on a team. And not only that, if he were to come back, he could be one of the leaders on an elite wide receiving unit, potentially on what we have coming in, what we potentially could have commit, and then how these receivers turn out this year that we currently have. It could be a great addition for someone like DJ Uyunglele to be able to throw to as the presumptive, knock on wood, I don't know who they're going to have, but a presumptive starter in 2021.
And I like that you mentioned about Amari Rodgers and the fact that when you see him at practice, he is the last guy to leave. Now, the quarterbacks are out there too. I think, if you're following Trevor Lawrence's footsteps, you're not going to go to the locker room when he's still out there throwing, especially when you're a young guy like those other two guys behind him. But when you look at the wide receivers class, I saw Joe out there, but Amari Rodgers was out there every single night, late, catching balls from the machine, catching balls from an intern, whoever it may be out there, definitely leading by example instead of just, by words. And so, again, we are talking about Justin Ross, what his expectations are after this season, because this season's in the books for him. Unfortunately, he's got to have that surgery on his neck and back area, and hopefully we'll be able to play football again because it is a serious issue that he's dealing with. Let's get a probability. Alan, what percentage, 0 to 100, your thoughts on him returning for 2021?
To Clemson?
Clemson.
I'm going to say that they're at about 80%.
What you got, Houston?
I'm going to say I'm going to go 10% lower. I'm going to say 70%.
Yeah, I think it's a difficult decision for sure. I don't really lean on that as much, Al. I'm going to give you guys a very profound answer of 50%.
Solid.
And let you know that it's up in the air.
You heard it here first at the Morgan Thomas Show.
You heard it here first. 50-50 chance he returns or not returns. But I will say that in the sense of what's going for him is E.J. Williams, his friend. He's there. And the culture that Dabo Swinney has built, that those assistant coaches have built. One more year at Clemson, like we said with Mike Williams, ain't going to hurt anybody. And it might be a good thing to have him come back. Is this something to where it, sneaks up and haunts them in the playoffs? Well, I say no, in the sense that they do have Ngata, Ladson, Spector, Williams back there, and hopefully sooner rather than later, Ajo. And we're only saying Ajo in the sense that, he came from a completely different kind of football in Canada and hadn't really played football that much, but he is the body size, he is physically there, but, experience-wise, not so much. But still a good class there. Again, don't sleep on the tight ends to be able to do something. Those guys are big and bad and ready to make a name for themselves. It's been a long time since we've had a legitimate pass-catching tight end out there that can be a threat in the middle of the field, and 2020 might be that season. But let's talk about the future a little bit. And before we talk about the future, let me tell you about our second segment sponsor. But before we even get into our second segment sponsor, I got Houston on the line here. Houston, I want to make sure we're going to talk about some recruiting things and maybe some 2021 recruits that are still out there. What do you say? You got another 10 minutes with us? Let me be honest.
Sure.
It's going to be 45.
I was about to say, yeah.
Okay.
Please up the ante there.
No problem. I can talk recruiting.
Well, we might need, if everybody likes this, we might need to get a third Skype call going now. We might need to get a group call going and get Houston in here and get his pretty face up here, his pearly whites in front of the camera, instead of just being behind the mic. But let me tell you about our second show sponsor real quick, and that is Tiger Sports Shop. We don't just dress for success, we TS for success, and that's tigersports.com, Tiger Sports Shop in downtown Clemson or on Tiger Boulevard. all of our gear or all of our outfit that we are wearing is from the Tiger Sports Shop. We go there even when we were fans, and we go there now that we are still fans and that we're on this show, and they have been gracious enough to allow us to be a sponsor of our show and to allow us to be their exclusive provider. They're our exclusive provider for apparel. So I am wearing a Nike purple and white striped Clemson polo, very comfortable. Al, what you got?
I'm wearing a Cutter and Buck Dry Tech polo. This is one of my favorites. This is like a golf polo. It's what it is. It's real stretchy material, light, breathable. It's good stuff as always from Cutter and Buck and Antigua. And again, I challenge you to go to Tiger Sports Shop and check out the Tiger Sports Shop brand. It's a apparel line they're trying to push right now. It is the same quality apparel, more affordable price. You're definitely going to want to check them out for sure. I've still yet to make my maiden voyage for the year to Tiger Sports Shop. I want to see all the new stuff they got in. I want to see it, but there's obviously it's a big hit to the wallet when I go in there. It's hard to help yourself when you go in there. It really is. So there's just so much good stuff, and you want it all, and you can't have it all. But it's great stuff. Tiger Sports Shop, the biggest, the baddest. They have the best selection. Check out one of their locations downtown Clemson, the US 123 bypass. Talk to Sean, Julie, tell them Morgan and Alan sent you.
A couple of housekeeping things, Al, I wanted to address before we go on, but I will say, Al, we know you work for the state. We know you got the money. Houston also, you agreed with Alan previously. That's strike one. Okay, so on the show, you have to always agree with me.
All right, gotcha.
All right. So segment number 2, we're going to talk about our Clemson made a big deal, made a big splash in the 2022 recruiting class. Now, I'm going to go through all these names. No, I'm not. But I'm going to pick out a few that I think that are pretty cool. Some guys to keep a lookout for the 2022 class. Now, this is, 2 years from now, but these guys, you got to when it comes into the world of elite recruiting, you got to be ready. You got to be on top of the game. Now, Clemson is kind of slower than most. Why is that, Al?
Because they like to take their time. They really like to get to know a prospect and know what he brings to the table, not only on the field, but off the field. They like to get to know him, his family. And that's just the process that Dabo uses. That's why he sends out fewer, offers than almost anybody in the country. It's just kind of the way they do things. It's worked for them. And why would you change a winning formula for sure? But the coronavirus has changed everything. The camps canceled, cookout canceled. I mean, it's crazy right now. They're having to do things a different way. But I can assure you, if I trust any staff to adapt, it's Clemson staff.
Yeah, and most of the time during last season, I was looking back through some of our videos over on our YouTube channel. During the last season, I mean, we were able to talk about the All-In Cookout and the Dabo Swinney camp and everything. I mean, it's just so fun during the summer to see Clemson just get at it and evaluate these guys. And you start to see new offers come out that maybe nobody else had looked at, but Dabo invited them to camp and liked what he saw. Joe is a perfect example of a guy who didn't have an offer, came in and earned one while he was at camp. What is that going to look like now? I don't really know. I mean, you really have to go on the film, and as we know, film only tells you so much. They're only going to post their good plays on film. You're not going to show the bad plays on film. Some guys that stick out for me: Colin Sadler, Greenville, South Carolina. So you don't normally see a Greenville, South Carolina native out there on the recruiting offer board. But, I mean, I will say that, in the world of Clemson landing so many California guys, it's nice to get a homegrown talent out there. Another guy kind of close to home is from Malden, Jaden Lucas, cornerback, and look forward to seeing some film on him. Now, I haven't taken a time to look at film yet, but we will definitely take a look at it as we get closer and closer throughout the season towards the end of the year. We try to spread that out a little bit, but it looks like 17 offers. You got about 4 offensive tackles, 1 strong side defensive end, 2 defensive tackles, 1 inside linebacker, Sean Murphy from Virginia, 2 outside linebackers, and 5 cornerbacks, 2 athletes. So it definitely looks like Clemson's looking to fill in some gaps there on cornerback and offensive tackle for sure. So those are some kind of heavy spots that have been offered right now. Talking about the 2022 class, go back to 2021. If you read my article over on southlandclub.com, there's not very many spots left You got about 13 players who have been who have already committed for 2021, and those players, for the most part, have filled in roles or backfilled roles that I believe will be leaving after this season into 2021, including, I put on the list, Justin Ross going into the NFL. That may change, I know, but there's a 50-50 chance. But again, Clemson has got Bubba Chandler at quarterback, Will Shipley and Phil Maffa at running back. For wide receiver, they've got Bo Collins and Dakari Collins, but it looks like they need to replace a third in this sense, and they will likely be going after Troy Stellato. He's been in the news a lot with his ties to Clemson, and he's from Fort Lauderdale. So a lot of people big on him coming to be a Tiger. Tight end, they've already got it, Jake Brenningstool. Offensive tackle, looks like there's 5 out there. A few that are warm on Clemson but have not selected a school yet. Marcus Tate is the offensive guard. Ryan Linthicum is the center that has committed. Weak side defensive end, you've got Zaire Patterson. Now that was, and then a strong side defensive end, Cade Denhoff. Now that was kind of a big deal because there's really only looking to replace 2 defensive ends. Corey Foreman was originally in that slot. He left, and now Zaire Patterson has moved into that role. Will there be a spot for Corey Foreman? We'll talk about that in a minute. But Peyton Page, defensive tackle. Jeremiah Trotter, inside linebacker. Outside linebacker, they got Barrett Carter in that sense. And they're still looking for another cornerback to go with Jordan Hancock. And as we discussed on the article, ton of safeties out there still fair game. They have a scholarship that needs to replace Will Spires at punter, but they already have Aiden Swanson, who's a redshirt freshman, so there's no need for them to go get another punter to replace the punter. They already have done that. But Al, so I've got wide receiver, defensive tackle, and safety as the 3 main positions that still need to be backfilled. What are your thoughts on that, and are there any other positions that Clemson fans need to be looking at?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like, we got a relatively low number, at least, this year, not so many leaving. And I think the total usually ends up being a little more than you think it's going to be, due to attrition. Sometimes you have a transfer out of nowhere. And Shaq Smith, a couple years ago, that's just kind of how things go. Or a year ago, that's just how it goes. I mean, some people decide they want another situation. They want to be closer to home. They're not playing enough here. They have a better opportunity elsewhere. Things happen. So that number usually jumps up 1 or 2. I'm interested to see if Clemson kind of changes its approach with the Justin Ross news. I know Dabo Swinney is going to have those conversations with Justin. Hey, what are your thoughts here? You thinking about leaving? You thinking about coming back? So Swinney's going to know going into, whatever his decisions to be made are. I think you gave a great rundown, all the people we had coming in and the kind of positions we have remaining, and I agree for most of those. I think offensive line is somewhere where we're going to take somebody else here. I think we're going to take at least 1, if not 2 tackles. And we're kind of in the running for several. Nolan Rucci is one. We're still kind of trying to keep the water warm with Aamir Sims. He's I think he's the number 1 offensive tackle in the country. Tristan Lee's another big name as well. And there's a few others. I know there's a couple other offensive linemen. Dedrick Pennington is one that we're kind of trying to stay in there with. But I think we want to tackle. We've got a guard, we've got a center. We're looking for a tackle this class. If it was the right guys, we'd probably sign 2 of them. And I think kind of the same story is with Foreman. When these situations arise, it's very rare at Clemson. We've talked about this. We've talked about how they just don't lose many commitments. And, in this case, it didn't work out, and he decided he wanted to still be recruited. So, a lot of people pulling him a lot of different directions. And if he's going to get back to Clemson, I don't see that happening. I think Clemson's got a lot of work to do. When I say Clemson's got a lot of work to do, Clemson's got a long way to go, because I think they're going to have to start, seeing the love from Foreman. That Dabo did his thing, went through his process. I'm sure he encouraged him not to commit. Corey Foreman decided to, so now he's going to have to play, kind of the chaser. He's going to kind of have to be the pursuer and show Clemson that he loves them as well and wants to come back. And maybe they have a spot for him in the end. I have a hard time believing they're going to turn away the number 1 defensive end in the country. But if any staff would do it, it's Dabo and company.
And I think you meant to say Amarius Mims.
Amarius Mims. What did I say?
Aamir Sims.
Aamir Sims. Hey, we're going to talk about him later maybe if we have time. But yeah, Amarius Mims, definitely. Big dude, by the way. He's like, I don't even know. He's 6'6", 315, something like that. He's a huge guy for sure. A lot of people think he's kind of SEC bound, so we'll see how it works out.
This just in, Aamir Sims turns down the NBA, gains 200 pounds, and now playing offensive tackle for the Tigers.
Hey, sign me up, man. Put him at tight end. Everybody always wants to take these big basketball players and turn them into tight end. Let's do it.
But, yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot going out there. I mean, when you look at it, though, I'm going to say that you've got – if you start taking a ton of offensive tackles, I see 17 guys need to be replaced. And that's my minimum. Guys that I feel like they're going to graduate for sure. And a few that are going to go to the NFL. Of those guys, if you start getting past 17 now, which you're talking more like 19, 20.
Right.
This is not even in the realm of that they're over-signing, because over-signing would be 25, and over-signing at 25 is still not a problem because they didn't sign 25 last time, so they're allowed to sign more than 25 this time. Over-signing also is not possible. They can't have more than 85. So I'm not saying over-signing in that sense, but I'm saying in the sense that they will, if they do more than 17, there's going to be more players than I suspect from my first glance that will not be on this team that are currently on this team. Now, that could be come the likes of someone like an offensive lineman who ends up doing awesome, like a Matt Bockhorst. Man, he has an awesome season. Maybe he decides to go to the NFL. Maybe that's where a spot goes. Jordan Williams, maybe he has an awesome season. Maybe he decides to go to the NFL. I right now have Niles Pickney leaving, but not Jordan Williams. So, maybe Jordan Williams does end up going to the NFL. Maybe there's a cornerback. Now, I put down DK would probably go, but maybe Lee Anthony Williams has a great season. Maybe Mario Goodrich has a great season and can get drafted as well. So those guys are out there, and there might be more than 17 out there. If those guys decide not to go to the NFL or are not, capable of making it into the NFL, don't get a good draft grade, don't get good prospects from the analysis that they get, then that's the hard conversation, right? That's the conversation like, hey, unfortunately, the recruiting train keeps rolling. You're now a redshirt junior or a senior, and more than likely one of these younger guys are going to take your spot or have already taken your spot. So it may be in your best interest to graduate as Clemson and then move on. Unfortunately, that might be the case. So, we'll see what happens, but sometimes you have to have those difficult conversations. But Clemson still, unlike a lot of other schools, they don't just blanket recruit every single person and offer every single person. They look for specific players, and they're upfront and honest about what positions they have expected. That's one thing that you don't really see a lot of. Dabo tells you up front, hey, if you're going to go ahead and commit now, we all have seen these things about Corey Foreman. Basically, hey, you're going to go ahead and commit now. If you decommit, I only have so many spots, right? So I think that's why Dabo does so well with roster management. Houston, didn't forget about you over there. I wanted to get your thoughts on the 2021 class. Is there any one player that you really like of the guys that are already committed? And then again, I'll bounce the question to you. Is there any one guy that you're hoping Clemson will wrap up before December comes?
So I'll say the two that I'm most excited about. I'll split this is both Will Shipley and Bubba Chandler. I think for Will Shipley, at first, I'll be honest, it took me a little bit of time to warm up to his film. I didn't really see it. But then I saw his film from, I believe, 2 years ago when Landon Zanders was still in high school. And this was play after play where Will Shipley was just ramming Landon Zanders, just being an absolute problem for somebody who's committed and is going to be a very, very talented safety for us. And so that got me perked up. And then as time went on, I'm like, yeah, I can see the comparisons that people are drawing. I can see some of the Christian McCaffreys. I think he's a little bigger built than him. And he's a really, really talented running back. And I think having to kind of go through that and see that is what really sold me on him. And with Bubba Chandler, look, he's going up the player rankings really quickly since Clemson. He committed to them. I think part of it, I'm excited to see somebody who has a baseball pedigree jump in with us. I think he's going to be just as talented on the diamond. I'm really excited about that. And then with the football side of things, I think he's got an ability to where he's got enough upside. You look at how he's able to throw, fade routes, post routes, different things like that. He's got talented film. It kind of came out of nowhere, and I think he could turn into the Chase Bryce, somebody that can come in if one of our starters are down, and sling some dimes around there. And so I'm really excited about him. As far as who I want to get wrapped up, I think the single answer is Troy Stellato. I love his film. Love it. There's not really someone in the past of Clemson that you can compare him to. He's not Hunter Renfrow. He's a little bit bigger. He's a little bit quicker to me. I think the best comparison to draw him towards is if you remember Ohio State in the mid-2000s had a receiver named Brian Hartline. Very talented, very fast, and he was a very gritty wide receiver that you could send deep, you could put across the middle as a slot receiver. He's a multifaceted wide receiver that I think can be really problematic for defenses to handle, especially just with he's got a mean streak about him as a wide receiver, and I like to see that, kind of almost like Steve Smith. And it's really, really, really nice to see someone like his caliber do that. And I want to get him on our roster. I want to get him committed and in the boat before December.
Great.
Yeah, I think that's some great stuff right there. No doubt about it. Those are good thoughts, especially on the 221 or the 2021 class. Stellato, hopefully he jumps in the boat as well. I like his film a lot too. You talked about his mean streak. I love that. I normally look for a mean streak in an offensive lineman, defensive end, but it's always good to have him on any position there for sure. You got to have that mentality about you for sure. And look, I'm looking over here on Facebook, Morgan. I don't know what you got on YouTube over there, but I'm looking over here on Facebook. We still got about 17 with us right now. Dad finally decided to join in, okay? So we'll thank him fresh off his fishing trip. We got Bill Lanham with us. Our friend Stefan had joined us as well, and Billy Sigmund, Marty McKee. You want to talk about the bad roads, that's who you need to be talking to, Marty McKee, all right? You don't bring that hate over to me, ladies and gentlemen. Let's talk to Marty. Tell him to get moving and get his stuff done over there. But we're doing really good on Facebook. Again, we want to thank everybody for joining us. We want to tell everybody we appreciate their support, and we love when they're active in the comments. Get on the phone line, call in the Charleston Sports Pub hotline as well. We want to talk with you guys, and don't forget to visit us at southlandclub.com and check out everything we're talking about.
Yeah, and you can read more of our stuff out there, post-show stuff. So typically every Friday night, every Friday afternoon, Houston throws up a latest article that he's been working on. On Saturdays, I throw up an article, and then on Sundays, Alan gives you some Sunday light reading there for you to end your week off. But yeah, we try to do some writing in there. We're still looking to grow the website, so got some things in the works. But southlandclub.com, go over there. Check it out, read some of the articles, join our forum, get in there and talk to us, because I promise you write something in the forum, we get an email about it. We don't just leave it there. We go and respond to you almost instantly or within the same day. We try to knock it out, unless it's like midnight, and then maybe this next day at that point. But we try to get to you, and that's not just me. It's me, Alan, Houston. We all try to get in there and talk about the Tigers or answer your questions, or, hey, maybe even just discuss things that none of us know the answer to, which is some things that I've had to do this past couple of weeks, which is talk about what is the fan situation going to be next year. I have no idea. I don't even think people that are in the position to make the decision really have the final decision so far. But it's a frustrating situation. But, Al, I want to tell you, we got 25 over on YouTube. Thank you so much,
Great.
YouTube, for supporting us, coming out and watching and listening to us tonight. Make sure that you hit the thumbs up. That's the first thing. So it helps out with our analytics. If you hit the thumbs up, it's all about analytics. It's Google. Google runs the world. So you got to hit the thumbs up. The next thing is that would be really cool is if you could just share it. Share it with a website that you really like, or another forum that you really like, or somewhere on social media that you really see other Clemson Tiger fans that may not know about the show. We've got a Facebook page, The Morgan Thomas Show, and a YouTube channel, The Morgan Thomas Show. And again, the website, southlandclub.com. All places where you can reach us, talk to us, interact with us. Again, Charleston Sports Pub Hotline, 864-772-6674. You saw the number up while Houston is talking. You'll continue to see that. It's our guest line. You can call in as well. So, open phone lines for you as well. But let's talk about our third segment sponsor and get into our final segment of the night before we wrap it up.
Yes, sir. That is my cue. Our third segment sponsor is Heating Cooling Services, Inc. They are family-owned and operated, serving Anderson County and surrounding areas since 1980. Heating Cooling Services, Inc. is your residential and commercial comfort expert. Anything from preventative maintenance of your home HVAC system to overhauling a commercial chiller to anything in between. They, look, these guys are great. All right, we talked to Jason Trammell. We talked to Mark Trammell. These are guys I grew up with. You're going to want to give them a call. You call them at 864-224-7655. That number, again, is 864-224-7655. They'll take good care of you. They've worked on my house. Look, it's hot right now. It's starting to get hot. It's 90 degrees. They worked on my AC, and I've been cool for the last couple of years because of it. Had a lot of problems with this air conditioner before, and they came, worked on it once, and it's been great ever since. So, look, they do good work. I like working with good people, and it's something that they're known for. So you want to give Mark or Jason a call. Tell them Alan and Morgan sent you.
And I put up the full screen graphic for you, but on that end, Alan, you disappeared. I'm going to go back. I got to go back. I got to go back to Black's Tire where you're there. For whatever reason,
It's okay.
You disappeared on the ad for heating and cooling services. I will look into that.
Hey, there
for
I
next
am.
show.
Not.
So now you haven't disappeared. Alan went on a bathroom break. Let's just say that. But again,
Yeah, sure.
another thing on the podcast you'll never hear. You only get this live. So let's talk about your article, Al. Commitment issues. Running back. Alan, you posted this May 31st, this last Sunday. I did the graphic. So if you go see the article and you see that nice graphic, I'm very proud of that graphic, Al. I really like it a lot. But the article is what's been so popular. One of our most popular articles so far. Al, you are accountable for the top 2 most popular articles of the website. Now, Houston is right behind you, and he is nipping at your heels. I, on the other hand, am nowhere in sight. So people like to listen to me. Maybe they don't even like to listen to me, but I need to improve. So I got a long ways to go to compete with the likes of Al and Houston. But you had a great article. I loved reading it Sunday. Commitment issues, running back. Tell us a little bit more about that article and why you wrote it.
So look, what I wanted to do, and this is a series again that's going to be coming out weekly, for the next, I don't know, couple months, 2-3 months maybe, because we've got 10 different positions we're going to go through here. I'm going position by position. I'm going back all the way again when my recruiting journey started in 2008, when I really started following it. And I want to take a look at the guys Clemson was involved with, these big names, these 4- and 5-star players that are on the hook. You can see a finish line. Maybe Clemson is involved. Maybe they're, less involved with some. Again, I just basically looked at prospects Clemson had an offer out to and somebody they were involved with. The degree varies. Some of them were almost going to come to Clemson. Some of them, maybe even gave a silent commitment to Clemson, but they ended up somewhere else for one reason or another. It's just kind of cool to go back and reminisce about some of the names and, what could have been. Look, Clemson's getting all these good players. It's not like we missed out necessarily, but some of them is going to really kind of jar your memory. And I think it was a lot of fun to do. If you haven't read the initial article that came out of kind of, why I'm doing this list and what exactly are kind of the rules, I gave some of the kind of guidelines to how you should read this list. You need to go back and check out the original issue, commitment article or commitment issues. And so basically, and it took me a long time to come up with that title, by the way. I couldn't come up with something I like. How I like to put things in my writing, whether it be the title or whether it be, an ending sentence or something like that. I like to do something catchy, corny, it's kind of fun. But commitment issues is what I ended up going out with. And look, I took a look at what I do is I find 10 prospects that Clemson was involved with that they did not get. And a lot of times I'll find an honorable mention or two, something like that in there. And usually, those will be people that, yes, I wanted, but maybe they were kind of last on the list as far as ones that I wanted. But I list them in chronological order in the top 10. and I went over some names. And what I found with the running back issue in particular, which is the one that just came out on yesterday, was like there's a lot of Georgia guys on there. They all ended up going to Georgia, and we know how Georgia is. They get the running backs. They get the 5-star running backs. It's what they do, and they love ripping them from us. Todd Gurley, Keith Marshall, Zamir White was another one. I feel like I'm forgetting one in there somewhere. I'm looking. Isaiah Crowell was another one. We're just in it with so many big-time players, and you're never going to land them all. As a matter of fact, going back, my favorite on this list, the guy I remember wanting the most was Derek Green. Played for Michigan, ended up committing to Michigan, which is weird that we were in it so close with him. Derek Green, he was a member of the 2013 class. And instead that year, Clemson signed Wayne Gallman and Tyshawn Dye. That's one of the things I do. I list the name, what class they were from, and I give a little bit about their career, their college career, and if they've gone pro and what they did in their professional career. And then I tell you who Clemson signed instead. And you look at the name Wayne Gallman, you're not going to feel real bad that we didn't sign Derek Green because Wayne Gallman was a beast at Clemson.
Yeah, and I remember Bryce Brown. You have him from Tennessee, 2009, so long ago nowadays. But I remember him as a guy that Clemson missed out on. But as you put in here, they ended up getting Hot Rod McDowell, who was, definitely one of those players that was made a big impact in building this program to where it is today. And he really didn't end up doing a ton for either school that he went to, and then he ended up going to the NFL. It's kind of interesting to see where these players pan out. Some of them end up doing really well, like Todd Gurley. Yeah. Some of them end up kind of falling off the map and struggling. One that I remember a little bit more recently is Keith Marshall. You had him on the list. He was one that I remember thinking, okay, Clemson could definitely land this guy. They're going after him from Raleigh, North Carolina. And then what did he do? He went to Georgia. Houston, I'm gonna bounce it to you. When you look at that, is there one running back that you wish that Clemson would have landed? And also, what are your thoughts on the fact that it seems that Georgia is the one that reaps the benefits from these running backs?
Well, I'll start with your second question first. With Georgia reaping the benefits, it stinks. I was in Athens in 2014. When Gurley, Marshall, and Michelle just ran roughshod over us. And to think that two of those running backs, because if you remember, we were in it with Sony Michel for a little while too. And it just didn't happen. Now, on the flip side of it, I think it's worked out. We were able to win a national championship with Gallman. Etienne has turned into a potential Heisman finalist. It just stinks because I would have loved to have been able to have, Gurley. And I guess I'm a little more bitter about some of those names because I was in college and knowing that, if we had one of those guys, maybe we could have pulled one out against Florida State or South Carolina, because I hate to admit this. I went to Clemson during 4 years where we didn't beat Carolina. And if we had any shot to have Gurley to maybe help us out with that, that would have been awesome. Now, with one single running back that I really wish that we'd had is Dalvin Cook. That just breaks my heart that we lost out on him, because you think about it, he's the only player that runs congruent with Deshaun. And I love Wayne Gallman. I think he's done amazing. I think he would have been an outstanding running back, but I also want Dalvin Cook to be in that system as well, because, man, he would make your stomach churn seeing what he's able to do on the field. I'm thinking about 2015 and 16, where literally anytime he touches the ball, he's going for a house call. And it's just like, oh, man, I wish we had a tandem of Gallman and Cook. That would have been just a sledgehammer to have to deal with every game.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Yeah, I think it's really painful for me. We know how much trouble I like to give Georgia, how much flack I like to give them on this show. But, the Gurley Marshall year was one I remember pretty vividly. As a matter of fact, I really liked Todd Gurley's film, and Keith Marshall was actually the more touted running back for most of the recruiting the recruiting year. He was kind of the higher ranked guy, and we were involved with both of them. And so once I don't even remember which one actually committed first. That would have been a good nugget to go back and look at which one committed first to Georgia. And I want to say it was Gurley, but I can't remember. And then it was sitting there. I was sitting there like, well, there's no way did they sign two stud running backs and take them both from us. Clemson finished like second place for both of these guys in the same year, and that is a gut punch because the same thing happened with Zamir White. Clemson finished second for him. And it's crazy. It's not one thing to lose. I mean, everybody's going to lose prospects, of course, when they don't go to your school, you lost them. But to finish second all three times to Georgia, it's brutal. I hate it. I remember it's just fun to go back and look at all these guys. And Elijah Hood was another one I really wanted. Ended up going to North Carolina. He was a big name. For sure. And of course, I had my honorable mention here, Noah Cain, that went to Penn State. This was recently in the 19 class, and he's done really well at Penn State. But this is a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to go back and look at these names, and I'm counting on all my recruiting gurus out there to kind of get in there and tell me names that I missed. In this era in 2008 to 2020, the time frame I was going by, I had somebody get in and tell me about one way back in the day. How Clemson was in it, and possibly the leader for Herschel Walker. He ended up going to Georgia again. Goodness gracious, I had to say that. Went to Georgia again. So get back and tell me about the old ones, when recruiting was not necessarily as mainstream. There wasn't articles about it all over the internet before I followed it. I'm counting on you guys to get in there and tell me about these people, about these players, about their stories and that kind of stuff. Because there's a lot of information to be had out there. If I just started following in 08, there's a lot that I missed for sure.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's fun about it. It's getting more and more exciting to follow recruiting as it is now because there's more information out there. I would recommend, following these sites that talk about Clemson recruiting because they got a lot of really good content out there. And it's exciting to see because Clemson is doing so well, so they're able to compete with guys across country and top-level elite guys. A lot has changed since that dandy dozen that Dabo originally signed with the Taj Boyd of the world. But a lot has changed, but a lot was built from that small class. Still not as big a class as some of these other teams do, but a lot more impactful, bigger names, bigger athletes, better athletes. So it's exciting to see what Clemson can do. For me, I like to see, you kind of have your pipeline, right, of states. Of course, you're going to have probably maybe half of South Carolina. You're going to have maybe half of Georgia, half of Florida now. You're probably going to have maybe most of the elite guys in North Carolina and some of Tennessee as well, even though Tennessee is starting to make their way back. But it's interesting to see you've got those obvious, connections, like Phoenix City, Alabama. You've got those connections in the Southeast. But then Dabo's able to land guys from Maryland, from outside Washington, D.C. And then we know, all the way over in California and some guys right outside of Dallas, Texas as well. And, Isaiah Simmons was from Kansas. So this is definitely becoming a national brand, or it's not already a national brand. It is a national brand. And look forward to seeing what Clemson can do because there's no guarantees that you're going to continue to stay at the top, as we've seen with those teams that we've already talked about. There's a lot of teams that are at the top now, weren't at the top 10 years ago, including Clemson. So, let's not take it for granted as Clemson Tiger fans for sure. One thing that we shouldn't take for granted is a return of Aamir Simms Jr. out of Palmyra, Virginia, 6'8", 240, played a lot of minutes. I don't even think he got any rest. But to close out the night, I wanted to end on a high note in the sense that we want to say welcome back to Aamir Simms. I was hoping we talked with Will Vandervoort. What was it? 2 weeks ago or last week? 2 weeks ago, we talked with him about the fact that, and he said that he believed that Simms was just testing the water, wanted to see what would happen, but he would probably come back. Well, now we know he will. And this team, with Simms as kind of the, old man of the group, even though he's not old at all, but with him being that leader, that figurehead to kind of take the team to the next level, with these incoming freshmen, I mean, I know there's a lot of people who are about to say this. Well, wait till next year. This is teeing up. So you're going to have Nick Honor. you're going to have Aamir Sims, and you're going to have two pretty good freshmen coming in as well. Clyde Trapp also has another year under his belt. And Alamir Dawes. I'm excited about what's going to happen for Clemson heading into the 2020-2021 season. Hopefully, none of this craziness affects basketball a second year, because that would just be devastating for those guys. I would not want to see that. But what are you guys' thoughts on Aamir Sims coming back? Let's start with you, Houston.
So, and the other thing is, I want to point out a name too. We saw 2 or 3 games of Jonathan Bear this year. I think he just was a little too hobbled to come back from his injury. You have a full year of recovery now. So you have a lot of bigs. You have a lot of big bodies, a lot of athletes. You have some guard play. This is a very critical year. I think the talent's in place to build upon what we got last year. We saw flashes against big-time opponents. Florida State, Louisville, Duke, North Carolina were able to get wins. Now, can you consistently do that? Having someone that's a veteran presence is awesome. To have someone level-headed enough to where we can take some of these young guys and build on that. I just want to see consistency. I think one of the knocks that Aamir Sims might have is, one night he may go off for 25 points, but another night he might go off for 5. I want to see consistency. I want to see him be able to take it to the next level. I want him to be able to be a high draft pick in the NBA, because I want him to turn into the consistent basketball player that I think all Clemson Tiger fans want. I think that can happen. I think this team could be really well. It could be a problem for the ACC this year, but it's just all in, how they develop and how this is implemented this year.
Yeah, and y'all keep talking about Aamir Sims. I think you're trying to talk about Amarius Mims coming back to Clemson, right, to play some basketball for us. I think that's who we want to talk about. That is great. I had Aamir Sims. I was actually so excited that he came back. I had him on the brain, so that was kind of a funny mix-up for sure. But yeah, this is huge news for Clemson. It was expected news. For me, at least, I expected him to be back. I thought he would test the waters and kind of see what he needed to work on and be back. But some of the guys, a couple of the guys that I don't think were mentioned earlier that I think are going to play big roles next year as well is John Newman, who really came on, became more aggressive. You saw some poster dunks at the end of this past season. I think he's really coming on and kind of coming into his own, as well as Alex Hemingway. We saw what he can do shooting the ball. And that was a lot of fun to see. Clemson fans have been wanting that more consistent shooter for quite some time, and I think they found him with Hemingway. So what Houston said nailed it to me. It's all about consistency, and that's what has been Clemson's problem for a couple of years now, is the fact that they just can't get consistent shooting. One night they'll shoot 60% from behind the 3-point, and the next night it's 15. It's just crazy how that happens. So if we can get more consistent play, especially from the point guard position, the shooters of the Alamir Dawes and that kind of, Nick Honor. We'll get to see Nick Honor finally. So when we get more consistent play from those guys this year, they don't even have to be, world beaters. They just have to be decent, and they have to be consistent. With the other guys that we have and the incoming freshmen, P.J. Hall and Olivier Maxence Prosper, we're going to be a dangerous team this year, and I'm really excited. I hate to be the next year guy, but I think this is a year where Clemson can really make some noise.
Yeah, I'm excited about it, and I hope you are too, Tiger fans out there over on Facebook and YouTube and Periscope. If you're still checking in with us, we got about 16 on YouTube and got about 12, 13 over on Facebook. So thank you so much for hanging with us throughout the end of the night. Man, we kind of gone up and down, but if you missed anything throughout the night, you can always go back over to our YouTube page or our Facebook page and check out our replays as well. So we have them up there. Basically, what I do is after the show tomorrow, I'll try to edit it up so you'll have a podcast to listen to. If you're a podcast fan out there, you can listen to it as well on your way to work, on your way back to work. And then later on in the week, I have clips of the show that you can watch and chew on throughout the week as well. And then, like I said, as the weekend comes up, you have southlandclub.com. Houston writes on Fridays, I write on Saturdays, Alan writes on Sundays. So we try to get you something new over the weekend, a little bit different heading into the weekend, or throughout the weekend rather. But before I let you go, and Houston, thank you again for being on. But before I let everybody go, I wanted to let you know about one other thing, and that is the Clemson ring plaque. We have them, and I got mine, and it's class 18. That's when I graduated with my MBA. and it's just like the Clemson ring. And it's a Clemson class ring plaque that is about 3.5 pounds. You can hang it on your wall or put it on your bookshelf. It's over at Creative Reflections. You can check out the link in the description of this YouTube video. So go get one for one of your Clemson grads, or maybe somebody that just recently graduated. You can get a 20 on here for someone who has just recently graduated. Or if you would like to get one for yourself and maybe you graduated, say, Al 2009, you can get 09 on there.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, it's a great product. You know, I always like to give them a hard time about me not having one, but it is a great product. It's really solid, like Morgan said. Looks just like the Clemson ring. And again, we talk about how unique the Clemson ring is. People love to have the Clemson sticker, the decal on the back of their car. This is just like it. And Morgan, of course, the beautiful model over there we have. I mean, how can you not want to buy it now, right? But yeah, give Creative Reflections a chance to get you kind of a unique piece of Clemson memorabilia.
How do they do on Price is Right, where it's like they zoom in, you zoom into the hand, and then you do a little tap, just tap on
Brutal.
it right there. Yep. That's how you do it. Yep, that is how you model for Price is Right. I should know. Spent many a morning with my grandmother watching that show.
Me too.
Great show. But Houston, Al, man, Houston, thank you for joining us and sticking with us throughout the end of the show.
Happy to be on, man. It's nothing like a great Monday night talk to Clemson sports.
Maybe if we get 1,000, let's get 1 million views, and you can come on live. If we get 1 million views, so out there, if you're a fan, you're watching, make sure you make it happen for Houston. So 1 million views, not very far away, just only maybe 99,999 away, but not very far, just one at a time. So make sure you like and share the video with your friends over on Facebook, YouTube, Periscope, wherever you're watching or listening. If you're over on the podcast, thank you so much for joining in. For Alan, myself, and Houston, Tiger fans, we'll see you at the top of the hill.
I've walked among the shadows, you wiped my tears away, and I felt the pain of heartbreak, and I've seen the brighter days, and I've prayed prayers to heaven from my lowest place, and I have held your blessings. God, you give and take away. No matter what I have, your grace is enough. And no matter where I am, I'm standing in your love. On the mountains I will bow my life to the one who set me there. In the valley I will lift my eyes to the one who sees me there. When I'm standing on the mountain, I didn't get there on my own. When I'm walking through the valley, I know I am not alone. You're God of the hills and valleys, hills and valleys, God of the hills and valleys, and I am not alone. I've watched my dreams get broken, in you I hope again. No matter what, I know I'm safe inside your hands. On the mountains I will bow my life to the one who set me there. In the valley I will lift my eyes to the one who sees me there. When I'm standing on the mountain, I didn't get there on my own. When I'm walking through the give and take away every joy and every pain. Through it all, you will remain. Over it all, Father, you give and take away every joy and every pain. Through it all, you will remain. Over it all, on the mountains I will bow my life. Yeah, in the valley I will lift my eyes. Oh, on the mountains I will bow my life to the one who set me there. In the valley I will lift my eyes to the one who sees me there. When I'm standing on the mountain, I didn't get there on my own. When I'm walking down the valley, I know I am not alone. No, I'm not alone. And I know I am not alone. You're God of the hills and valleys, hills and valleys, God of the hills. And I am not alone. God of the hills, the God of the valleys, the God of the hills and valleys. And I am not alone.